Okay, we are going to be continuing our work in charcoal, but we are going to switch gears a little bit. To this point, we have been working in a matter that is slow and controlled and layered and incredibly realistic. Um, Charcoal does a really good job of creating uh, artwork that's as realistic as you want it to be. Um, I've seen charcoal drawings that look like black and white photographs. They're that detailed and unbelievably rendered. Charcoal also has an expressive side, a kind of emotive side that we're now going to start dealing with. So you're going to want to have your sketchbook and your charcoal. So you can see I have my white, my black, and my vine charcoal. You will end up needing your kneadable eraser. So you can see I have mine out of my package and it's ready to go. We're going to work in the sketchbook today. And what we're going to do is you are going to be drawing for me the four basic shapes, the four basic geometric solids. So if I just write those over here, you're going to need to do one of each. So you're going to do a sphere, a cone, a cylinder, and a cube. And we're going to shade these in charcoal using some more expressive techniques. Some experimental techniques as well. I'm going to show you a few. Part of what you're going to do today is just sort of explore. So you're going to need to do one of each. I want you to maybe be prepared to take notes. You don't need to draw them separately. I drew them separately so you guys can see them. I'm going to do the work over here on this side of my sheet. So step number one, and it doesn't matter to me which shape you use for any of these techniques. You can kind of mix and match and work with them on your own. So the first thing I'm going to do is over here on my paper, I'm going to draw my sphere. And I did this with the vine charcoal, so you can see vine charcoal. And I'm going to snap off a little chunk off the end of my vine charcoal. And what I'm going to do is fill the space. So I can do this any number of ways, but you can see that by doing this, I am toning my sheet with my charcoal. Now what I can do is I can come in and use some pencil charcoal to kind of refine my shape. You'll also notice that I am going to be a little bit more expressive with my mark making. I am also going to come in and I'm going to say, all right, I want to erase out some of these lighter areas. So I'm going to use my eraser as a bit of a drawing tool as well. So I'm pulling the charcoal off the lighter areas of the sphere, and I'll post a reference photo for you guys of all of these shapes so that you kind of have them. and sort of know what you're looking at in terms of like values included. And now I'm just going to go ahead and, like I said, I'm going to shade my shape. I'm going to be a little more exploratory about how I'm using marks. So you can see I'm sort of using like a straight line kind of process here. I'm also having them kind of extend into my background. This is, like I said, this is for you to kind of explore, but you can see that I'm starting to pull this sphere out of here. Maybe I decide that, you know, I want some of this background to feel dark too, so I'm going to put some more charcoal in. I also can use a tissue and my finger, and I can do some blending work, which is something that we haven't done yet. So you can see I had those lines there, and now I'm just going to kind of soften that value. So that's another thing that you can kind of explore a little bit if you like. Now I'm going to come back here, push some white into my sphere. And you can see that this is going to definitely feel three-dimensional and like a sphere, but it has quite a bit more energy than the one we shaded last week, right? It's got a little bit more vibrance. It's got a little bit more kind of happening. So the techniques I used were to tone sheet with the vine. And I'm using marks as value. I erased to pull the lights. And I could do that more, like I could, you know, and then I also blended with a tissue. So these are all things that you're going to want to try as you go ahead and explore these shapes. So I'm going to go ahead again, and I'm going to tone my sheet first. And again, this is with the vine charcoal, the little chunk that I broke, which works perfectly actually for this. And I think I'm going to use this cube as my next example, because a lot of times we have problems drawing the cube, and so I'm going to do something else that is very expressive, and I'm going to leave kind of my planning lines as part of the work. So you can see that I'm kind of being expressive about how my shape comes together, about how I planned that shape. I'm going to go ahead and use some of these as part of my shadow shape. And I'm not going to get rid of that. So that's something else that I can kind of explore. I'm going to explore kind of some hatch lines again as a value structure. Kind of keeping this one a little bit more linear, right? It's a cube. I have to sort of soften straight lines if I want a sphere to feel three-dimensional. But if I want a cube to be three-dimensional, straight lines are really a great like design choice that I can make. And I'm going to kind of leave those planning lines. So a cube, we have the three values, right? We have a dark, a medium, and a light. They fall on the planes of that, you know, shape. And then maybe I decide I'm gonna, you know, pull up a little bit. Maybe I decide, oh, this is another thing. This is just as much a drawing tool as your pencil is. So I am now going to use this. I'm going to make this into a bit of a point, and I'm going to use this as a drawing tool. So I'm going to kind of go over some of these practice lines that I drew. I'm going to pull some of that value through so you can kind of see that I can give my drawing some texture this way. Can use this as another tool. And again, it doesn't matter to me which order you do these in. Maybe I decide I don't like the white, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of smear that off of there. So we discovered another couple of techniques. We can leave our planning lines or shapes visible. And we can use our eraser as a drawing tool. Okay. So far I've used only straight lines to shade my shapes. So that's something maybe I want to think about kind of shaking up as I move forward with my drawings. Maybe I want to explore something that has a little bit more scribbly or scumbly kind of an effect. So this time I'm going to start a little different. I'm not going to tone the background. Just going to go ahead and draw my cone with my vine charcoal. And I'm going to think kind of more like scribble style. And maybe as a part of that scribble style, I also am going to do some like experimental mark making with my hand. So this would be some blending that I'm doing out here just with my hand, like I'm making a mess of my hand. You could do this with a tissue certainly as well. But you can kind of see, like I'm going to have, this is called scumbling, by the way. It's like scribbling with style. So there isn't just like hatching or cross hatching. You can go ahead and explore a more like emotional or vibrant like kind of thing. I'm just pressing lighter and lighter as I go so that I have a lighter and lighter value as I kind of wrap my way around my form. Now I could use my eraser. I can come in and use my white. Like I have a lot of different things that I can kind of explore. Does my white blur the same way the black does? The answer is not so much. So this is a little bit about experimenting. What can you do to shade the shapes so that they don't feel completely perfect and boring, but still feel three-dimensional and a little bit more expressive? I want you to experiment with all of these different techniques that I've just shown you, but I do also want you to make sure that you use all 4 of the shapes. So you can see, like so far here, my shapes all feel very different from each other. You know, maybe I really want this guy to pop, and so I come back here in the background and I also add some of this scribbling in the background. So it's something else you can think about too, like lighter shapes. If I give them some kind of background story, they're going to pop off of that. So you can see all of a sudden this outer edge of my cone is very vibrant against this wacky, scumbled background space. Okay, so try to include an environment for your experiments, as well as making sure that you're shading the shapes. Have fun. We're going to make a drawing using expressive techniques.